Hello everyone, my name is Venya and I am a first year medical student at the University of Nottingham. This video is something I got requests for, and it is for me to compare the Indian curriculum, primarily CBSE, to the British curriculum, both of which I have experiences of. So I did the vast majority of my primary education from an Indian school here in the UAE, and I did my secondary education from a British international school in the UAE as well. In this video, I hope to give you factual information and also draw in from my own experiences so that you can make the best choice for yourself or for your children. So let's talk about curriculum and syllabus. So CBSE follows a curriculum which is designed in India, and the strong focus is on core subjects such as science, on maths, social science and languages. Students tend to do their board exams in grade 10 and grade 12, where they typically do 5 subjects. However, do note that in grade 10 students tend to stick to these core subjects, and there's no optional modules that you can drop in and drop out of. When it comes to grade 12, however, students typically pick streams. So you'd either go into the science stream, you would go into the commerce stream, or you would go into the arts stream. When it comes to the British curriculum, there are a broader range of subjects which are offered, and they're offered at a greater flexibility. However, the core subjects tend to remain as maths and English. When it comes to board examinations, there are 2 sets of examinations again, similar to the Indian curriculum. They are conducted in grade 10 or year 11 and are called GCSEs, and they're also conducted in year 13 or grade 12. These are called A-levels. And GCSE students tend to usually take between 7 to 10-ish GCSEs, and you can do GCSEs in PE, you can do it in art, you can do it in design, you can do it in media, you can do it in whatever is at offer, but there's generally a broader range of subjects at offer. However, the compulsory ones still tend to remain maths and English in GCSEs. When it comes to A-levels, there's no compulsory options. You can choose whichever A-levels you'd like to do. Students typically do 3 A-levels, and there's no streams that you need to adhere to with these A-levels. So you could do history, you could do economics, and you can do biology, for example. So there's no stream that these subjects are adhering to. It just depends on what you are good at, what you'd like to do, and what your degree requirement is. When it comes to teaching and learning style, CBSE tends to follow a structured approach where teachers usually stick to the prescribed syllabi and the focus is on textbooks. Also note that the Indian curriculum is a lot more in depth than the British curriculum. However, what the British curriculum lacks in terms of depth, it makes it up for the fact that students are crafted into inquisitive learners. Learners who are able to independently think, who are able to critically evaluate things, and learners who have research abilities enveloped into them. This is also typically reflected in the style of examination questions. So there's no way you're going to do well in GCSEs and A-levels if you just learn a whole bunch of information and regurgitate on a piece of paper. You need to thoroughly understand the information and be able to apply it in GCSEs and A-levels to do well. If I were to draw an example from my own life, when it came to my A-level biology exam, I was given a random article on examination day from PubMed, which is the scientific publisher, and I was asked questions based on it. So there was no way I could predict what those questions were going to be or what that article was going to be, in fact. But I had to conquer it on the spot and answer things based on what was given. When it comes to examination and results, CBSE is its own board and it conducts its own examinations. So CBSE conducts its Class 10 and Class 12 examinations. However, when it comes to the British curriculum, there's multiple boards that you could prescribe to. There is AQA, there is Cambridge, there is EdXL, and they each have their own international variants. Don't worry, you don't have to choose them. Schools usually choose them, and the qualification is held at a similar value, so it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. However, when it comes to results, CBSE uses a percentage approach when it comes to results. The higher percent you get, the better that you have performed in an examination. However, when it comes to A-levels and GCSEs, they use a percentile approach. They rank students based on each other's performance, and the top performers get the top grades. In GCSEs, these grades range from 9 to 1, 9 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and in A-levels, it's A star to U, A star being the highest and U being the lowest. So if you're getting 70% in an A-level exam, doesn't mean that you've done terribly. You could still end up with an A star if your peers have, on an average, ended up scoring 50% or 40% in that same examination. Okay, let's talk general pointers now. The first thing is expenses. British schools in general are a lot more expensive compared to Indian schools, and the examination fees tends to be higher as well. So if you're thinking about expenses and this is something that's a big concern for you, you might want to look into that. The second thing is diversity. This is obviously dependent on your geographical location and the type of school. However, from what I've experienced, British schools in general are a lot more diverse than your average Indian school, and you get to experience cultures from all around the world. It really helps you become a global citizen and appreciate different people and their different backgrounds. Let's talk about academic culture. When it comes to Indian schools, there is a major focus on education, and the academic culture is very strong. They make you into a hard-working student from the get-go. From my own experience, the British curriculum is a little bit more lenient in the primary years. However, when it comes to your GCSEs and A-levels, the academic culture does tend to become strong. Nonetheless, the focus is not just on education in the British curriculum. They don't just attribute academic success into success of you as an individual. They tend to shape you as a whole. They tend to build other traits of your personality apart from the academic side of things. What to do if you're on the fence about when should I transfer my child from the Indian curriculum to the British curriculum? From my own personal experience, keep them in the Indian curriculum if they already are for their primary education, because it helps them build that strong work ethic. It helps make their foundations really strong, and then transfer them in for the secondary education, because secondary is when you're going to be learning all those additional skills, all those critical thinking, independent learning skills, and secondary is when you'll be building yourself up as a well-rounded individual, all of which the British curriculum offers. Lastly, the choice is yours. If you would like your child to study abroad and develop into a well-rounded person, which is what universities abroad require, then I would recommend the British curriculum. Also, it is a little bit more on the expensive side, so if you don't mind paying more, then definitely go for it. If you want your child to study in India, are looking for a slightly cheaper alternative, depending on the school, and if you're wanting your child to have a very strong work ethic, then I would definitely recommend the Indian curriculum. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments section below. I'll try my best to answer them all. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and share it with whoever requires this information.